Hey guys, welcome back to the channel for what's going to be a very different tutorial today. We're honing in on one attribute to rule them all. Sorry for the Lord of the Rings reference, but it is so important. This attribute can downgrade all of your mentals and all of your technicals in one foul swoop. It's massively overlooked in the community, and that's because it's a hidden attribute. So today we're going to uncover how you can unveil this within your save, how it downgrades all other attributes, if you can improve it long term, and how you can work around it in the short term. But before we unveil the attribute itself, guys, which is no doubt why you're all here, you need to understand how attributes come together to form abilities in Football Manager. This is so important and again massively overlooked within the community. Until you understand this, you won't understand exactly how this hidden attribute can affect all of them. So abilities are essentially a combination of different attributes, but how it works is quite intricate. So a player can finish, pass, dribble, tackle, head the ball, all these different abilities. Now, because the wording of them very much hints towards their technical ability, that's where the bias comes towards technical attributes. However, a player's ability to finish is massively influenced from their primary attributes in that ability, which are finishing, technique, and composure. Obviously, finishing, self-explanatory. Technique is the finishing of harder chances, like on the volley, first time shots. Composure is more related to one-on-ones, but it's essentially how they will do under pressure. All these have a massive influence on that finishing attribute and can degrade it significantly. Another one is decisions, the ability to make the right decision at the right time. Am I going to pass? Am I going to shoot? Where am I going to shoot? Which corner am I going to shoot to? You could also argue anticipation is important because it's how you anticipate the goalkeeper's movement as well as other players' movement and your teammates' movement. And the sheer volume of these combinations is simply staggering. I could talk all day about it, but you're here for the one attribute that can change them all. It's consistency, guys. The hidden attribute, consistency, can downgrade technical ability, every single one of them, and all your mental attributes. The only ones it doesn't impact are physical attributes. It works on a game-by-game basis, and it can be influenced by form, morale, and discipline. But before you run away because you've got the one answer that you wanted, please stick with me because we've got loads of important information coming up. I'm going to teach you now how you can improve it over time, how you can manage it in the short term, but first of all, let's jump into FM itself and see how you can uncover what each player's consistency attribute actually is through your backroom staff. Right, let's get into the game. How does consistency downgrade all of these attributes? It essentially acts as a handicap on a game-by-game basis, and it dictates how often a player can reach his actual ability. If Andy Cow's got 14 for finishing, but he's only got 2 for consistency, that 14 finishing doesn't mean an awful lot, not on a game-by-game basis. You can find out what a player's consistency is by clicking on the coaching summary or just click on reports there. If it comes up in the pros, fantastic. If it comes up in the cons, you may need to understand exactly where the attribute lies from 1 to 20. I'll explain how you can do that in just a second. But if it's not on the report, don't worry. It's not that the coach or the scout have missed it off. It's most likely because it's around 10. 10 is not deemed to be negative or positive. Here is an example of the way consistency appears in a negative way on a scout report. This is a guy called Leslie. Won't even try to pronounce that surname, but he's 16 years old. The scouts say that he should be focusing on becoming a more consistent performer at this stage in his development. Very misleading. You cannot impact how much a player improves his consistency other than through giving him game time. Mentoring or tutoring, whatever you want to call it, does not do anything for consistency, despite what some people might be telling you. Only game time. That's really important to understand, guys. Likewise, it's important to understand that this attribute is pretty hard to improve. Even with good players playing a lot of time, I've only seen it go up by a maximum of 3 to 4 points in a 7-year period. Generally, it's quite a bit less than that, maybe around 2 or 3. But do not fear, because there's actually ways you can work around consistency by good man management. Before we go into that, let's look at some scout reports and show you exactly what the colour scheme is from 1 to 20 in the consistency attribute table. In at number 1 to 2 is Brandon Barker. It's a deep red colour and is down as being very inconsistent. Nathan Patterson is the same colour, but his description varies slightly. Says there that he needs to become more consistent to stand a chance of featuring for us. These descriptions can vary a little bit, to be fair, from scout to scout, but the colour changes once we get up to 4 and 5. It then goes to quite a deep orange, and it should say somewhat more like inconsistent performer. We stick with the same colour in at 6. This is Leslie again, guys. Remember this kid, because we're going to look at him in more detail later in the video when we talk about development v performance. And 7 is another jump in the colour table. We're up to that nicer kind of yellowy orange colour here, and it's fairly inconsistent in the Scouts report. Between 8 and 9 consistency has the same colour as 7, so again a little bit misleading, but the description should vary here. Should say more like he needs to work on becoming more consistent. But then when you get up to 10 and 11, it probably won't appear on the Scout report at all as either a con or a pro, so don't worry about that. This is also where we draw a line in the sand. Any player below 10 is where you need to be aware of consistency, but in my opinion, until they get to 6 and below, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You can probably manage it through man management anyway. And for clarity, 6 is that deeper orange we were discussing, so it's not this orange colour here. We're looking for a player with that deeper orange, which is that one right there. Moving quickly up the table, 12 should be represented by quite a browny green colour, and it'll say something like fairly consistent performer. The next jump up is 15, and this is quite a deep earthy green, and it should say something like consistent performer. We then get up to 18 before it changes again, and it goes to quite an illuminous green for a very consistent performer. This is the sort of player that you will think, wow, he's performing way above his ability. It's not that he's performing above his ability, it's everyone else is performing below their ability during some matches. Right, let's do as I promised and jump into Leslie's future profile now, just so we can discuss performance and development. So this is Leslie in 2027. He now plays for AC Milan after moving from Rennes, and he looks like a cracking little player. Really good touch, passing technique, balance, stamina, determination, good all-round ability across the board. He can score goals, 14 for long shots, 14 for finishing, and yet this season, from 7 starts and 14 bench appearances, he's had a 6.67 rating. You may be saying, well, the bench appearances can warp that because they end up with lower ratings. I agree with that. However, 2025-26, he had 36 starts in all competitions. Scored 11 goals, which isn't too bad, but he got a 6.93 average rating. That's excessively low for a player scoring 11 goals. That suggests to me that he scored 11 goals when he's been playing to his full ability, but the other games he's just been off the boil completely. Likewise, 35 appearances in the league with a 6.66 average rating in 2024-25, and the list just keeps going on, guys. So for me, this is a very good example of a player who, when he is playing well, is playing exceptionally well, but because of how low his consistency is, we're not seeing it game in, game out. Now, of course, it could be impacted by tactics, various other things within the match engine and within the game, loads of variables. That's why a lot of people probably don't want to touch on these sort of subjects, because they are a little bit arbitrary, but I personally think it is just a very good example of what consistency could do. And while we're here, let's finally touch on what you can do to manage consistency within your save. It's simple, guys. Discipline. You need to discipline your players. At the end of a game, if they get a rating of 6.6 or below, criticise them. For whatever reason, whether it's because they've missed chances, not supplied chances to the strikers, defenders playing badly, criticise those performances. Likewise, praise them when they play well. It just reinforces and helps the player reach better consistency on a short-term basis. Some people claim that players can weather a bad period of inconsistency with good professionalism, determination and work rate. I personally aren't so convinced. I think that's a bit of a guess. I've not seen anything in the game myself to suggest that's the case, but it could well be. So now that you're aware of how consistency works, the colour scheme, and basically how to see which players are inconsistent, you may be able to work that out for yourselves. That brings this to an end, guys. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, give us a thumbs up. It massively helps the channel. And hit me down in the comments if you thought it was helpful at all, because I may consider doing future such tutorials if it helps you guys. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and hit the bell button to get notified of new tutorials and episodes as and when they go live. And I'm going to plug my save right now. It's called Tier 10 to the Top, all the way from Tier 10 of English football to the top flight. We're playing with Prestwich Hayes. It's been a fantastic save so far, and I highly recommend you jump into that. I'll leave a link up there for you. Right guys, thank you very much for following, and until next time, see you later.